Hey everyone, we often talk about how the early game is the most important time in the game. This is especially true for junglers. I mean, think about what happens to laners once they lose their tower. They just get to farm in a safer position. However, the inverse is true for junglers. As the game goes on and you lose towers, it gets harder and harder to get your camps without dying. Because of this, and many other factors, we need to value the early game extremely highly. You only get around 14 to 15 precious minutes of time, and it's quite often that junglers make game-losing mistakes within the first few moments that completely ruin their game. League is based on the idea of snowballing, where once you get a lead, it's easier to keep getting a bigger one. Any mistakes made in the early sections of the game compound and make it exponentially harder to win. So fixing these early game mistakes are some of the biggest changes you can make to instantly improve your win rate. With the jungle changes, we have a lot more downtime between clears, but one thing has remained constant. The spawn timer of the Scuttle Crab is still 3:15. A lot of players are doing slower paced clears expecting to not be punished, but nothing in the first clear has changed. You absolutely need to be at a crab or on the map right around the 3:15 mark. Our gold Kha'Zix in this game disrespects that fact and goes for a full clear, even though by the time he's done with red, it's already this super critical time. Of course, there are exceptions, a notable one being if the enemy jungler is pathing away from you and going towards the other crab, or you know for a fact where the enemy jungler is. I'm actually playing Zac here, and at the start of this game, both junglers know that the other is starting bot side because of the leash. So when I get to top side after my clear and see that the crab is still up, I know that Kha'Zix is doing one of two things. Either he's on Krug still, or going to bot crab. Realistically, he should be in river right now. Knowing that his champ can't clear by 3:15, he needed to skip a camp. And if he had, he'd be done with the crab and would box me out from doing any plays on top side. However, because he didn't value this timer, I get full access to the river, a location that bridges to every area that I want to be right now. Whoever has control of the river has access to plays. If you can't move the river, it becomes incredibly hard to actually gank, invade, or contest camps. This is why getting a scuttle is so important. Kha'Zix is completely boxed out of topside river here, and can't get access to the gank or the crab, even though he's in the area. This is just the definition of complete time waste for him, as he's not able to get anything here. I protect my laners from ganks just because I'm in river first, and he can't do the same. Right after this, Kha'Zix is about to make another mistake. We'll play out this section quickly, so watch carefully and let us know what you think it is. Tempo is really important for a jungler. In simple terms, tempo is just who has control of the game. The person that dictates the pace and drives the game forwards has the ability to snowball. Junglers give up tempo all the time by doing things like this. They stay on map for a really long period and don't recall. 7 minutes of the early game have gone by and Kha'Zix hasn't put pressure anywhere until just now. This is partially due to not having items to make ganks work like you see here. And if a 2v2 fight were to break out, there is no way he's going to win. To contrast this, right after the top crab, I immediately base. This lets me get items and heal to full in order to be ready for any fight. Kha'Zix would be completely unable to counter this gank, or be strong enough to make a counterplay happen on the other side of the map. So when should he recall to fix this problem? When you clear your jungle, it's often best just to base immediately if you get the crab and don't have any other things to do on the map. This will make you as strong as possible for when you do come out of base, and you can look to immediately start snowballing. In this game, however, Kha'Zix did the correct play by going to get bottom crab, and by then, his bot side camps were respawned, so it doesn't really feel great for him to recall here. If he does, he'd be making another critical error of leaving all of his camps up. You generally never want to have everything up at the same time. Not only does it give the enemy a chance to counter jungle you, but you're not taking advantage of the fact that camps give more XP the more often they are killed. You need to compromise in situations like this and just clear out your bot side, then recall. If Kha'Zix had just pressed base here, he would have enough gold to buy a Dirk, and then would have been able to kill Shen top lane. Not only does not basing mean your clear is awfully slow, but it ruins your ability to gank like we already showed. Another huge mistake, and probably the most common by far, is just not knowing how to select a starting location. Even in Platinum or Diamond, a lot of junglers will just have simple rules that determine this. I hear things like, my champion clears so much better starting at blue, or I just start with my bot lane for the better leash. If you want to hit higher ranks, you cannot do this. Starting camp selection is one of the most important things for every jungler to learn, and it's definitely a skill that gets built up over time through experience. Starting in the wrong spot can have you end up with very little to do. You might not have ganks or camps available and be forced to sit around aimlessly wasting time. In order to avoid that, we need to think about a few things. The main factors that I look at are 1. Volatility, 2. Priority, 3. Jungle matchup, and 4. Gank ability. Let's go through all of these things first, and then we'll look at an example to test our knowledge. Volatility is simply how swingy the lane matchups are. Tank matchups like Ornn versus Cho'Gath, or double enchanter lanes like Soraka versus Janna tend to not be very volatile, as neither lane has a whole lot of kill threat. Even if kills do happen, they're not that important. A 2-0 Ornn isn't that big of a deal, but a 2-0 Fiora versus your Riven is. Lanes are not created equal, and that's why we need to weigh our volatile lanes as much more important to path towards when it comes to deciding where to go. Second is priority. Sometimes you won't get ganks off, and in that situation your options become to contest neutrals like crabs or to invade. In both of these cases, you're going to want a laner that has push. A very common misconception is that you should path away from lanes that will be pushing, as by doing this you're allowing the enemy jungler to come in and kill your overextended laner for free. It's often a good thing to path into lanes that will be shoving, since it allows you to get crab and mess with the other jungler if you want to. Also, dives are a thing, so just because a wave is under the enemy's tower doesn't mean you can't go for it. Obviously, this requires a lot of experience to learn. Most junglers probably won't understand how lane matchups work, but this is where you just have to see it enough times and pay attention to who's getting the push more often, or think conceptually about how it should go. We'll touch on that in a bit. Third is your jungle matchup. If you win 1v1 and should feel compelled to path into the enemy jungler, ending up on the same side means you get to throw your weight around and start your snowball. If you lose, it's best to try and avoid them. Again, this takes a lot of experience, but you need to be willing to test your limits and find out who your champion can and can't beat. You won't learn if you're always scared to fight, and that's something that we see a lot as well. Players will run away from fights that they win just because they don't want to take risk, and this is definitely something you should actively try to avoid. It's much better to die trying than to never try at all. Lastly is gank ability, and we put this last for good reason. A lot of players feel compelled to path into lanes with CC, but this makes them ignore all three of the things we just talked about before. You may have Cho'Gath with a knock-up top lane, but if you have Caitlyn Janna bot lane, they are going to be pushing, and really need to snowball, since Caitlyn is strong early, weak mid, and strong late again. She needs to get over that trough in her power level, and the tank lane top isn't going to help do that, even if you can get him kills. All these factors combine together to influence where you start. Think about what options you'll most likely have after you're clear, and path towards the side that gives you more. You'll mostly be pathing away from your starting location, so starting on the same side as the lane you want to path away from is usually recommended. Okay, so let's just show this champ select here and think about what you would do. If you were Vi, which side would you start and why? It's a bit of a weird one with Zed top, but take your time and pause if you need to. Okay, so let's go through everything here. Mid lane stands out as a super volatile lane as it's two assassins, Quinn versus Katarina. However, mid is, well, in the middle of the map, so we can play to it from either side. So between top and bottom is definitely more volatile. Zed can't walk up to set at all. He'll mostly just be farming with Qs and never going in. Varus Morgana, on the other hand, is a very aggressive lane. They want to fight and bully out the enemy, and this leads us into our second point, priority. Zed is not going to get shoved against Set. He loses at all levels in the 1v1 until much later into the game, so you won't expect to have an invade or a crab play on top side. Bottom, on the other hand, outranges heavily. Varus has similar AoE to Kai'Sa, but much more range, and Morgana pushes about as well as Seraphine does. Your chance of being able to get a bottom crab is way higher than top crab. Third, Vi struggles against Pantheon pretty hard. He's just a strong champion early on, and all of Vi's damage can be completely blocked with his E. It definitely doesn't help that her Q is telegraphed, so he has an easy time reading her. This makes us want to path away, and obviously we don't necessarily know exactly where he's starting, but we can apply the same principles to Pantheon to figure out where he would probably want to go, and all signs point towards top. Additionally, 90% of junglers are going to start with their bot lane and elos lower than diamond, so if you have to guess, it's not a bad guess. Lastly, bottom has hard CC, top doesn't. It's pretty obvious now that Vi should probably path towards bottom. However, in our game, she doesn't do this, and with her newfound knowledge, it may seem really bad for her to do it, but 99% of players just don't think about these things. And if this is the first time that you've really broken down your starting location like this, you might not have caught yourself making this mistake all the time. Vi shows up topside, gets pushed off the crab, and loses her flash, and at this point, her game is basically completely over if Pantheon goes for double crab. She has very little playmaking potential, and there isn't much she can do. This can pretty much be all predicted from champion select with enough practice. Try to go through your loading screens thinking about these 4 rules, and you'll have a much better time playing League of Legends. Sometimes rules are going to override each other, but it's up to you to figure out what you value more, and again, experience is the main factor here. But in order to gather experience, you need to know what you're looking for, and hopefully this video has helped you with that. And remember, if you want to improve fast and get the rank you've always wanted, then check out SkillCapped.com, link in the description below. Otherwise, you know the deal. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get more premium guides with one goal in mind, helping you become a better player. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.